Good afternoon. The last few sessions I have been talking about how the Catholic Church best fulfills the mark that all Christians hold that Christ's true church should have. Its unity, its oneness. Today I wanted to move on to the second of the marks that the Creed gives us. That is that Christ's true church should be holy. And over this video and maybe the next one, as I respond to some objections, I wanted to make the case that the Catholic Church best exhibits this mark as well. The first way that the Church understands herself to fulfill this mark actually may come as a bit of a surprise. When you think of the Church being holy, you think, oh, let's look at the Church. Do you see holiness there? Actually, the first way, because all people are sinners, both in the Church and outside the Church, the first way that the Church exhibits the mark of holiness is that it provides the grace of the sacraments, that is, the means to be holy. We define a sacrament as an outward sign, that is, there's something visible about it. It was something instituted by Christ, and it imparts grace, that is, the means by which we can live out our Christian calling to be perfect as God is perfect. This is not something we can do ourselves. We need grace to do so. In order to be like God, in order to be perfect, in order to be holy, we need grace. Well, the sacraments provide grace, and the Church has always taught, and this is contrary to the Protestant perspective, which is a novelty, because when you look at the early Church as well, there is a consistent record, both in the East and in the West, even among our separated brethren even among our separated brethren in the East, there is a consistent teaching that there are 7 sacraments. Now, the two that we share in common with the Protestants are baptism and Holy Eucharist. And I think it's clear when we look at Christ's words how these sacraments provide grace. Christ says, unless you are born again of water and the Spirit, you shall not have life within you. He's speaking of baptism there. Unless you eat and drink of my flesh and blood, you shall not have life within you. He says that as well in John chapter 6, which I know I've mentioned already. This is clearly an allusion to the Eucharist, this ongoing nourishment that we need in our spiritual life. So we have baptism in the Eucharist, and yes, we share that with the Protestants, but we Catholics, in keeping with the tradition of the Church, hold that Christ provides the means of grace not only in baptism and Eucharist, but he elevates, for example, marriage. Notice that Christ holds Christian married couples up to a higher standard than is required in natural marriage. What God has joined, let no man cast asunder. That's a higher calling even than in the Old Testament. And therefore the Church has always taught that Christ has instituted marriage as a sacrament. Similarly, the other vocational sacraments, such as the holy orders, deacons, priests, and bishops, likewise, they have a special grace which configures them and allows them to live that calling at a higher level than they could simply by their own natural means. Finally, we see in the New Testament that the apostles followed the example of Christ in anointing the sick, and therefore we speak of the anointing of the sick, sometimes called extreme unction as well. So the Church has the sacraments, the means by which one becomes holy and lives that life of holiness. And in that way, in providing the grace of the 7 sacraments, the Church is holy. Not only that, we have the example of the saints. And this is a big deal for us Catholics. All through the liturgical year, we highlight saints. Every day, in fact, is the feast day of some saint. And the point is that although there are many sinners in the Church as well, there are those sinners who have struggled through keeping close to the sacraments and have achieved a level of perfection that is worthy of our study and our emulation, and who intercede for us as well. So not only does the Church provide the means to holiness in the sacraments, it provides an example of people who have actually achieved that holiness through staying close to Christ, his church, and the sacraments that it provides. That's all I have. 5 minutes today. I'll continue this tomorrow. God bless.